First thing is I'm going to show you the placements of the lower ranked badges. So that is from LAC all the way up to Flight Sergeant. Okay. So ignore this here. This will not be here. There will be a clean sleeve. What you're going to do first is you're going to bend the elbow. And then you are going to measure, using your measuring tape, the distance between the top of the seam here and the bottom of the elbow. Okay, so that's about 34 inches. Let's say, yeah, 34 centimeters. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to cut that in half. So I'm going to go to 34 divided by 2, which is 17. Okay, so there's the 17. And this here is halfway in between your elbow and the seam at the top and your shoulder. So this should be the center of where your badge is that you're going to place. So say I'm going to place an LAC. I'm going to hold that spot. I'm going to put the LAC badge on, and that's where your LAC badge should be placed. Okay? The other thing is you need to make sure that it's centered in your arm as well. So when she stands at attention, just come this way a bit. When she stands at attention, I'm going to make sure that it's lined up center between here all the way down to the center of the sleeve. So that's centered, and make sure that your badge is also straight. So make sure it's not crooked. You don't sew it on like this or like this. So just make sure that it's straight and parallel with the ground. Okay? So after that, I would just pin it on. And you could use safety pins. You could use these types of pins. Okay, so I just pinned the badge on, and now what I'm going to do is sew it. I'm not going to do this one right now. I'm just going to show you how to place the badges for now. I'll show you sewing on the other one. Okay, so this one's done. So that was a rank badge. And if you have other ranks, of course, the center of the badge goes there. LACs are really easy. But say you have a flight sergeant that's a lot bigger, so you have to make sure that you place the center of the badge, which is about here, in the center of the sleeves. So it will be a bit higher to the squadron badge, okay? So that's pretty much it. And what you do after you pin it, you just get the person to bend again the elbow and make sure that it is center again. You could just look at it. That looks about right. So then you could go on and sew it on. Okay? So, some other badges that you might be interested in knowing are, there's a level badge. I can't show you that on my tunic because I'm not allowed wearing level badges with warrants.
Why not?
So that's what I'm going to show you how to sew on later, so I'll do that while I do it. So some other badges that you might be interested in knowing are the marksmanship and the fitness badges. So these will go on your left sleeve, and they will be directly on the seam. So the seam between the cuff and the actual arm, there is a seam there. So you need to make sure that the badge is directly on the seam, so there's no space between the cuff and the badge. So some people think there might be a centimeter, but they don't know for sure. Well, make sure that you do look at the Cadets because they do specify it has to be directly on the seam. So the next badge that I'm going to talk about is the squadron badge at the top. So the correct placement for this badge is 2 centimeters from the seam up here to the top of the badge and centered going all the way around the badge. Okay, so I'm just going to measure 2 centimeters and I'm going to place a pin on the 2 centimeter mark. And then I will just put the badge under and try and center it with the arm. Again, make sure that you're wearing the tunic when you do this so that you can tell where the center is. So that's well centered. Finally, the camp badges. So the camp badges, they're the same as the marksmanship or the fitness badges. So they go directly on the seam and centered. So say I only have 3 badges here, but say I have 4 badges. And this is also indicated in the Cato. So if I have 4 badges, I'm not going to try and add it to the other side because there's not really any more room. So I'm just going to put the badge right in the center and on top. So that's what the layout is for 4 badges. It's also good to know if you have 2 badges, the 2 badges are not centered in your sleeve. Your first badge will be centered in the sleeve, and your second badge you will place in front. So she's standing at attention. To the front of her is where the second badge will be placed, and there will be no badge here. So it will be off-centered, but that's the way it's supposed to go. So you always go to the front first. So say that I have five badges. There's your 4th badge. So your 4th badge is placed there. And your fifth badge will be placed again to the front. Again, if you have 6 badges, you'll just place the 6th one here. And on your 7th badge, though I think you'll be good enough at sewing your badges on by now, you'll just place it on top in the center. So it does state in the Catos, if you do have 7 badges, it does change the measurements a little bit for the higher ranked, but I'll show you that in the next tunic when I could actually show you how to put the higher ranked badge on. First aid badge. So I'll show you guys in the other tunic where to place your first aid badge when you have a lower rank than a warrant. So, but if you are a warrant officer 1st class or 2nd class, you should know this already by now, but you never know. The first aid badge will just be centered where the lower rank badge goes. So directly centered between the elbow and the top point. Exactly how I placed the lower rank badges. No. Okay, so I'm going to continue where I was about the first aid badges. I don't have another first aid badge, so I'm just going to show a warrant officer badge, and I'll flip it around so you don't get confused. So the first aid badge goes on the right arm, and it goes 1 centimeter above any of the camp badges you have. So if you have 1 row of badges, it will just go 1 centimeter above here. So make sure you take your ruler, measure 1 centimeter above the center badge. As you can tell, the badge she has 2 badges. So she has the first badge, which is centered with the ranks, and then the second badge, which is directly in the front. Okay, so that's an example of a placement with 2 badges. Okay, so for the first aid badge, I'm going to show you it like this because it's easier to see. What you're going to do is you're going to measure 1 centimeter from the top of the center badge, which would be the first badge, and place the bottom of the first aid badge on it. So the first aid badge is a little bit smaller than this badge, but it's in a circular, no, straight down. It's in a circular form, like this. I showed you it in the other tunic. So you're just going to do that, you're going to pin it there, and make sure that it's centered with all the other badges, okay? And 1 centimeter above again. So if you are a warrant, you probably know how to sew your badges on already, but just in case you are just newly promoted and you don't know exactly the exact distances they should be, I'm going to explain that. So if you are a warrant officer 2nd class and you have 1 or 2 rows of badges, your badge will go 9 centimeters from the cuff. So measure out 9 centimeters. And this is the bottom of the badge. It's not the center of the badge, it's the bottom of the badge. So just pin that there and make sure that it's centered with, of course, all the other badges. Obviously we have a sergeant there, but it will be centered with this badge and with this camp badge. If you have 3 rows of summer camp badges, as I showed you in the other video, it will be up over 9 centimeters, okay? So what you'll have to do is you'll have to just measure 1 centimeter above the top of the 3rd row of badges. So it is possible to get 3 rows of badges if you do 7 camps, which would be your last year. So you would have 3 rows of badges sewn on, measure 1 centimeter from the top of that badge, and that's where the bottom of your rank badge will go. Okay, so it should look like that. And again, make sure that everything's centered up your entire sleeve. So that was badge placement. Next I'm going to teach you how to sew your badge on and badge placement for the level badges. So she already has a level 2 on, so I need to make sure I unsew it first. Don't sew on top of the badge. Make sure that you unsew the badge first. So I'm going to do that really quickly, and I'll fast forward through all that. Make sure not to cut the tunic when you're cutting the badges. And another thing is, if you have badges, you are not allowed to glue them on your uniform. It does say in the Cadets you can't glue them on your uniform. Make sure that you sew them on. So another thing you might notice is that when I took the badge off, there was a little bit of tape underneath. That's always good to do, just masking tape. Just put a little bit of masking tape underneath the badge. With the masking tape, you can keep your badge flat on the tunic, and it's also easier to sew. So if you don't have any pins around, it's just as easy to use a little bit of masking tape on the back of the badge, and that will really help you. So what you're going to do is get her to stand and straighten her arm. Tie the tunic how you tie it. So if you only do one button, just put one button on. Make sure it's nice and flat when you're putting the badge on. Okay, so I just put a little bit of masking tape on. Make sure that you don't stick your badge on and just leave it there. You don't want to just tape it on. You need to sew it on. Okay? So I'm going to just place the badge in the center and okay, so make sure that the sleeve is straight and standing at attention so that it's just easier. Okay, so I'm just going to center the badge and place it about 1 centimeter above. If it's not 1 centimeter, don't worry about it right now. I'm just going to take a ruler now and I'm going to measure to make sure that it is 1 centimeter. It's a little bit high, so I'm going to move it down a bit. Okay, so then I'm just going to look at it straight on and make sure that it is centered. Okay, so the badge is now centered and straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some pins now. And just pin them in just in case the masking tape stops sticking for some reason.
Like it.
So pin as much as you like, but remember you have to work around the pins when you are sewing. Okay, so that's pinned on. I'm just going to look at it one more time just to make sure that it's perfect. So now that it's pinned and I just checked one more time to make sure it was good, I'm going to take the tunic off, or she's going to take the tunic off, and then I'm going to show you, I'm going to zoom in to me sewing and I'll show you how to sew it, okay? Just to go over the places of the badges, make sure that your camp badges are on the right side and your fitness or marksmanship badges are on the left side. Make sure that your first aid badge always goes on the right side. So that, remember, that was our inverted wards badge. And that is 1 centimeter above your camp badges. And then this level badge goes 1 centimeter above your fitness badges. If you don't see any information on badges that I have here, I will post the link to the Cadets below. Okay, so I'm going to move on to actually sewing the badge now so she could take her tunic off, and I'll zoom into the sewing.